Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Dive into DeFi with FEG Token, which should be, it'd be great to hear updates that they have and also their views on the current market situation. It's a genuinely mad time. What's happened in the past couple of weeks, no one could have thought that, where we are now would be where we are a couple of weeks ago. And to top it all off, obviously SBF's tweets, bizarre. But yeah, we're going to be diving into DeFi, discussing everything DeFi, the advantages of decentralized versus centralized, and a lot more. Ben, one of the co-founders of BSC News, is going to be co-hosting with me, and I see. I'm just going to make sure that I'm inviting the right FEG token up. Ben, welcome to Dive into DeFi. How are you?
Good, thanks, Tom. It's been a more normal week, I feel like, other than like weird tweets yesterday.
Yeah, apart from the tweets, and I've been going down some serious rabbit holes, some quite sort of conspiracy theory, tinfoil hat rabbit holes, but that's perhaps for another space or discussion. But yeah, to an extent, it's been reasonably normal, and fingers crossed it sort of continues this way. How have you found that the last couple of weeks or week? Are you keeping your head above water?
Last week I was just so distracted, I think, by everything going on. I just felt like super unproductive. And so while I say normal week, it's been one day.
Yeah.
But I had a good day, and I didn't really think too much about FTX for a change. So that was nice.
Good. And obviously, we're on the BSC News, Binance Smart Chain, BNB chain now, but Binance looks all good at the moment, and long may she live. One of the good things, this isn't, I'm not being paid by Binance or anything, but one of the things that sort of came out from this is, what stablecoins are, the most safe. And in my opinion, BUSD seems good. Essentially, it's just Paxos US dollar can be exchanged for US dollars on their site. And also what's quite good is you can exchange it straight for BTC and then export that or withdraw that straight to a ledger, which is good. Yeah, so fingers crossed everything is less eventful than the last few weeks. FEG token, feed every gorilla. I've sent you a request to speak. So when that comes through, if you'd like to unmute yourself and say hello, that would be good. I think it's going to be Frankie from FEG token. I'm not sure actually, Frankie, if you're going to be speaking from the official FEG account or your own one. Ideally, it would be good if you could speak from the FEG account, but if that's not possible, no problem. Cool. Frankie, I've invited you up to speak. If you want to unmute yourself when you can and just say a quick hello, just to check your microphone's working.
Hi there.
That would be great.
I'll be on my account. RTR Crypto is currently a listener. He should, if you could promote him up.
Fantastic. Yeah. Oh, I'll do that now. Good.
We'll keep the FEG token account in, but we won't be speaking from that particular one.
Fine. All good. And how have you been the past sort of week or so? Obviously, it's been very, very, very eventful. How have you been, and how's FEG been the last kind of week or so?
Okay. Obviously, we're following events, but from a FEG perspective, we continue to push on as we have done through many kind of ups and downs and market turmoil, shall we call it. So yeah, it's very much the same for us. Continue to push what we're doing.
Exactly, yeah.
But
building in the bear.
It'll probably be less myself and more RTR speaking. I'll pitch in where needed, but once the RTR is your man for today.
Fantastic. Good. Well, hello, RTR, Frankie, and FEG token. Welcome everyone to the space. Thank you very much for being here. We'll be discussing DeFi in general, its advantages, or perhaps its drawbacks towards in relation to centralized exchanges, and also just DeFi in general, how to stay safe online, and also what perhaps FEG are doing to push crypto in the right direction. RTR, I'm not sure if we've spoken before. Would you like to introduce yourself and a little bit about FEG perhaps as well?
Hey, good morning. Absolutely. Can you guys hear me all right? Just want to make sure my mic is functioning.
Loud and clear, sir. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, so I am the global project manager for FEG Token. We've been a decentralized project that launched early 2021, January. Note that we're on both the Binance and the Ethereum blockchains. So we launched the Ethereum side on January 31st, 2021, and February 12th on the Binance Smart Chain, creating a deflationary concept and reflective concept integrated into one token, taking the RFI tokenomics and the deflationary concept that SHIB pushed into one thing, but merging them in a fashion that's done per transaction rather than a manual burn on the Shiba Inu side. So, we've taken that tokenomic structure. We're actually going to be migrating the token to our SmartDeFi technology, which we'll get into later. But that migration, once audit is sent off this week for that code, will actually be coming out this quarter, Q4 of 2022. So we're really excited to see the movement forward and the growth. And I'm looking forward to this conversation about decentralized finance, centralized finance, and how FEG Token is moving forward in a direction that brings, both safety and security to the decentralized finance space, which is getting more and more important as we've seen in recent events. I heard you guys talking a little bit about this last week. So I think we all can agree that it definitely stands to grow in the coming weeks, months, and years.
Indeed, yeah. I think decentralization, essentially people getting their tokens or coins or balances off a centralized platform has been the real sort of take-home message from this week. And obviously, yeah, we'll get more into that shortly. Firstly, I have a question about FEG. You've recently done sort of a big rebrand or a haul over of how your user interface looks on your site, all your logos and things. Obviously you used to have the sort of gorilla with the cool sunglasses, and now it's sort of like a more corporate look. Would you be able to tell us your reasoning behind this rebrand, and why you decided to well, I'm not sure if rebrand is the correct term, but
rebrand's the term we've been using. Yeah, so what we decided to do was, the decentralized finance space, and I think that this is a problem that we'll get into as we discuss moving forward. The problems that DeFi has in itself is that there's a lack of security, lack of regulation. There's a lot of people manipulating the market, taking advantage of new investors, and really this meme culture, which used to be fun and engaging. And in my personal opinion, and part of the reason I fell in love with decentralized finance was its sense of camaraderie and community, and people looking out for people, bringing the power back to the people, and really giving them the power with their own assets, self-custody, and being able to do these different things like provide liquidity and lend and borrow on your own, and not needing a middleman and such. But that power also was manipulated by large groups, and there's been a number of scams this year. There's scamming in DeFi space when it comes to rug pulls and honeypots on projects. And so we just decided that if we wanted to be taken more seriously from traditional investors that are onboarding into cryptocurrency space and people that were already in the cryptocurrency space, but more so in the blue chip, quote unquote, blue chip realm, and coming into decentralized finance space, that it was ideal for us to move in a direction that was more tech platform oriented looking than rather, meme culture. Even though personally I love the gorilla, I know that we've even had community members that tattooed the gorilla to themselves. And so we really are going to keep the gorilla as a legacy logo and use it in merchandise and such. And you'll see it pop up on different things as we progress forward. But we're definitely taking the FEG rebrand, and what we've done is we've essentially built a suite of tools that we'll discuss later, like our person-to-person trading platform that is limit order based, that's self-custody the entire way through. There's no intermediary, there's no smart contract between that. It's essentially a transfer from one person to another, and so it's completely decentralized. Taking that there, and then as well as our aggregator, which is going to route through any decentralized exchange to find you the cheapest prices on tokens that you want to buy off the market price, as well as our SmartDeFi launchpad. So which is going to be a fully audited platform. So anybody who launches off of that platform will have an audited contract code. And so we're really excited about that. And I think it's important for us to brand ourselves and then use a suite of tools that we've created and brand those tools as well. Essentially looking like, Microsoft, how they have Word, Excel, etc. So it makes the most sense for us moving forward to do so in a little bit more of a professional manner, because we want to be taken seriously in the space, because we are a serious project with serious tools and we're bringing serious utility to the decentralized finance space.
Nice. Thank you very much. I do like the new logo. I do hold certain affinity to the old school FEG sunglasses, cool looking gorilla dude. But yeah, I think your reasoning is it's very good, and hopefully you'll see an increased user base perhaps. Obviously you mentioned the term decentralized a lot there, the space as well. It's called dive into DeFi or decentralized finance. In your view, to what extent is DeFi in crypto, I know it's quite a general term, decentralized? But for me, one of the only sort of decentralized concepts within crypto is Bitcoin. It's pretty much impossible for an individual or a small group of individuals to stop Bitcoin transactions and to stop the Bitcoin network. And then the term DeFi, or like a decentralized exchange, yes, to an extent it's decentralized, but there's always going to be a small group of individuals or an individual that perhaps could take down a website or remove a liquidity pool here and there. To what extent do you think DeFi in crypto is actually decentralized, and do you think the term DeFi perhaps might be getting used a bit flippantly?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it can be used flippantly. I think that, my personal opinion, there's always an overseeing group that has to maintain, right, the project and for growth and development. And it's a difficult area to be in when you're looking at how do we make a decision that's best for the project. At least I can speak for FEG, right? How do you make a decision that's best for the project while still taking in all the considerations of the community? And one of the methods that we've done for ourselves is we built an on-chain voting system that essentially allows us to act like a DAO, and people are able to vote with the weight of the amount of tokens that they own. And so that's been one technique that we've used in moving forward with for example, our rebrand was actually voted on chain for moving forward with the FEG token. So we actually had 3 options that we developed, and it was the FEG logo moving forward the way it is, FEG logo that was adjusted in different color hues to make it a little bit more professional looking and make it more compatible across the different utilities that we were building, color scheme wise, and then make it more brandable. And then third was just revamp the entire thing. And so there was a heavy vote on option 3, which was actually the rebrand that we just discussed. And so I think that there's always going to be some overseeing body that has to make decisions for growth and moving the project a certain way. The best thing to do, in my opinion, is to make that as decentralized as possible and really take into community community input. And a large part of what we've done over this entire just about 2 years that we've been out is we push out a product that we've built thinking, this is the best way for it to look, and this is the best way for it to, for it to be structured. And then we take the input of the community. So one of our first platforms was FEG Track application. It was our first application that was launched, and that is still out today. You can download that FEG Track in the Android store and Apple app stores. Now, that app has seen quite a bit of development and restructuring, and even with the rebrand, we're actually rebranding it right now, and it should be coming out within the next week. And so that is really exciting for us as well. But we took all the input from the community and we've structured all of these things in the ways that we've received input. And so you really just have to, even though you make certain decisions, you have to structure the way things move and the way things look and the way things appear off of the user, off from what the users bring to the table. And it's a difficult, it's a difficult line, because where does it become centralized and where does it stay decentralized? So I really do think that it's an interesting dynamic. We do our best to keep things as decentralized as possible, and that's through the on-chain voting system that we've developed. So I think, a lot of projects will claim to be decentralized, a lot of blockchains will claim to be decentralized, but really, if you can turn things, on and off, and you have, control over the liquidity. You brought up liquidity. So if you're a decentralized exchange that holds the LP tokens on, in a wallet, you custody that LP. Are you decentralized? Not in my opinion. The creator of a project should hold the LP and it remain locked. And so one of the features that we'll discuss on Smart DeFi, our fully audited token launchpad, is that when a project owner creates a project, they'll have the ability to maintain some of the liquidity, but we capped it at maximum of 50% so that they can't hold the majority of it. You'll also find that we have integrated, if you lock your liquidity, you're able to burn up to 10% of your liquidity once a week, and that liquidity is in tokens, leaving the token that it's paired to, still in there, boosting the price of your tokens. Now, we did that only at 10% of whatever remains once a week, in order to make sure that nobody burnt the entire token, the token amount, and then dump their tokens and rug all the liquidity. So there has to be a lot of safety features when it comes to pushing forward a platform, which is something I think we've done really well. But I also think that you have to create these things in a way that is decentralized, where you don't hold all of the control, and projects that launch with you have the freedoms to make their own decisions and structure their projects in a way that they want to and run them in a way that they want to. So it's really a difficult question, and I appreciate it, but it's definitely something that I think we'll see more development in what DeFi is and how it moves forward in the coming months, because of what recent events have been.
Definitely. Well, thank you. Yeah, for your great answer. It is a very challenging question. It is DeFi actually DeFi, basically. So thank you very, very much. And yeah, what you said about sort of community input, having a voting system that's on chain, I think that's very important as well. Essentially, handing decision making to the people that use it. I think for what my dream would be is a decentralized or an on-chain swap that is all smart contracts are renounced, and then different projects can essentially just build user interfaces to interact with those renounced smart contract swaps, maybe, and then that would be maybe fully decentralized. I don't know. It is a difficult one. Ben, have you got any thoughts on this at all? Whether the term DeFi, decentralized finance, should be called DeFi, or should it be, I don't know, called on-chain instant swaps instead? And then, I don't know, there should be some, okay, this is me really brainstorming now, some random third party that says, yeah, this is close enough to DeFi to call it DeFi. Yeah.
Well, I think it's like, I guess it depends how you define it and how strict you want to get on that definition. So, for example, what attracted me to DeFi once it like clicked for me, a couple of years ago, was I get to be like this liquidity provider, which is sort of like a market maker. It's a little different, but like I get to participate in the market in a way that was previously totally closed off for me, let's say in a traditional financial system. So, that market participant has been decentralized, right? Where I get to make trading fees as opposed to just the market maker profiting or just the platform profiting. So what has to be decentralized? I don't think you could decentralize the whole thing, because if something breaks, there has to be someone there to fix it. But I think the idea is it's more just pushing forward fairness and decentralizing power potentially, if that makes sense. It's almost like looking at Robinhood, and they have market makers that like are counterparty every trade and they profit constantly, and it's like, I want to be the counterparty. I want to profit on every trade, so I can provide liquidity, let the market go absolutely nuts over FTX, and I'm actually making more money because of FTX in the long term. Yeah, my assets may be down, but I'm collecting trading fees from volatility. So, I think that's just one example of how decentralized I think is the correct term. Decentralizing roles, decentralizing participants. And then from there, though, like what RTR said, like you still have to have a group of people that's going to fix the thing and push the thing forward. And then kind of democratizing the vote get, community feedback, I think is a great way to do that.
Indeed. Thank you. Yeah, it is a very, well, gray area, difficult question. I think, defining the term DeFi within crypto, well, thank you very much for your answers, basically. It's a challenging one. Frankie, you unmuted yourself.
Yeah, I'll just pitch in. The thing to bear in mind, DeFi is still, in relative terms, fairly new. It's something that's developing as the crypto space grows. Even kind of, well, I won't say third parties, but other entities like Coinbase still describe it as a kind of umbrella term for peer-to-peer financial services and public blockchains. So this thing, what DeFi was versus what it is now, is entirely different. And as we go day by day, even the next few weeks, and as RTR said, in the coming months and years, what DeFi will be then is probably going to be completely different to what we're seeing now. It's something that is kind of evolving and growing as we go, which is why at FEG, and RTR has mentioned some of it, and some of it we're going to go into probably naturally through the conversation, is we're evolving. We're trying to drive that, drive the adoption, drive the kind of reduction in control, and putting the power back to the people that are getting involved in DeFi. So it is. I appreciate it's a tough question, but I think it's still fairly open in terms of what DeFi truly is. But I certainly think that the way that the FEG project is going, and others in the space, is certainly in the right direction. And given what has been happening, you will see people pushed more towards DeFi, or at least trying to understand what it is and how it can benefit them.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Yeah, I think that the total, well, I'll actually look it up in a moment just to give the exact sort of numbers and stuff, but the withdrawals from exchanges this week and people sort of moving towards DeFi is definitely, a move towards DeFi. Ben, you unmuted yourself. Hello.
Yeah, and I actually noticed that there was somebody from Venus in the crowd, which got me thinking about the borrowing and lending market. And the the way you can, let's say, make loans, borrow against collateral without permission other than what's granted to you by the contracts and the assets you're utilizing is another, decentralization there. And that's the same thing with just going anywhere to make swaps and all of that. So again, just another way. I think decentralization can just be about the concept and the way you use it as well.
Yeah, the thing to bear in mind, and I know you just said, sorry, RTR, you want to go? No,
I just wanted to reiterate the fact that we're actually, FEG is bringing back an asset-backing platform, which we had on the original SmartDeFi platform, which is any token that launches off of our platform, and this builds into the decentralized finance aspect of borrowing and lending, which is why I wanted to bring it up now, as it fits. So the asset backing aspect of our SmartDeFi token launchpad is that any project can assign a percentage per transaction to buy and sell that pushes a percentage of the transaction tax into a separate liquidity pool. That liquidity pool backs up all the tokens in circulation. So if, let's say, your asset backing gets to a point where your token is worth, each token is worth, $10, et cetera, however much it is, you can actually go in there and burn your token for that $10 per token. Or you can say, I want to come in here and take a loan against my own asset because I need to pay a bill, but I don't have the money, and I don't want to sell this token because I think it's going to go up. So you can take a 30-day interest-free loan called Smart Lend and take that against the asset backing of what the token value is, and then come back within 30 days and pay that back. And if you can't pay it back within 30 days, you can extend for 30 more days for 0.1% of whatever collateralized asset you put in. And if you default on that loan, it burns the token, right? Because that asset backing has already been given to you. And while that token is held in the smart contract, it actually builds the asset backing there. So you don't have to pay the difference. You only pay back the amount that you came in with. So let's say you keep burning that 0.1% and you keep just paying back, you come back and you pay that initial loan later, your token now is worth much more. So you can come back and take that excess amount right away. So, that borrowing and lending it's really interesting. And I think that if used correctly, projects that launch off the SmartDeFi token launchpad will actually have a real store of value, because you can put that backing in a stable token and see that grow, and that will always be pegged 1-to-1 to the US dollar. So you'll see it's always rising, that percentage. So it's a really interesting concept that we've brought to decentralized finance space, and I'm really excited to see how that gets utilized in smart DeFi projects coming soon.
And I don't think we should probably dive too far into this right now. We'll get stuck on it for the next 40 minutes. Is this a feature that's going to be for just like any holder, or is it for projects?
This is so any project that launches can add that feature optionally to their project for holders to use. So, okay. For example, that's going to be one feature for FEG after we migrate onto the Smart DeFi platform. We're going to have an asset backing feature there. So you'll be able to take the collateralized amount of whatever the asset backing value is worth for your tokens, and then come back and pay that amount back and get your tokens back out. So you can take a loan against your own asset and then come back and pay it back within 30 days interest free. So yeah, we could definitely run down the rabbit hole of borrowing and lending for hours, but this is just an interesting feature that's coming out. It'll be available to all smart DeFi launch tokens, audited tokens, that including FEG, optionally, right? If a project wants to use that function on the launchpad, they're welcome to do it. And so I think it's a really big benefit for tokens in general, because they'll have a minimum value that's forever rising, but also it creates a nice utility and an option for people that don't want to sell their asset and need a little bit of money in a crunch. So definitely with the market volatility, this is something that could be utilized.
Indeed. Thank you very, very much. Looking forward to it. I know Ben, and I'm a big fan as well. Yeah, borrowing and lending protocols. I don't want to say it's like free money, but to an extent, sort of is. Changing subjects a little bit, you mentioned the term self-custody earlier, and this term has been going around a lot on Twitter, and a lot just in the crypto world, and also teamed with the term not your keys, not your crypto. Would you be able to tell us, in your personal view, why you think self-custody is important? So perhaps why using a hardware wallet or a wallet that you own the keys to is important in comparison to, say, storing your assets on an exchange.
Who's this question directed to? I'm sorry.
To anyone, really. I mean,
I'm happy to take it.
That would be great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So to me, self-custody is holding possession of the keys to your own crypto, right? Your digital assets. And I'm a big believer in this, and I've been a believer in this, and everybody that I know that's interested in getting into cryptocurrency in my day-to-day life that asks me about this, I tell them to utilize decentralized wallets, cold storage if possible, just because I think it's the most secure. I do like a hot wallet, but for active trading, but I tend to use that only for active trading, and like Trust Wallet and MetaMask. I like both of those, and I like MetaMask for use of my Ledger. I use Ledger, but I know a lot of people that use Trezor, SafePal, and just speak highly of them, especially SafePal with their DApps and such. And they've really built a nice product there. But I think that security-wise, you never know what's going to happen with a centralized exchange. And one of the big things about DeFi versus CeFi is that, and DeFi and centralized exchanges, is that when you're using a decentralized rail system, rails on a swap, you're keeping custody of your assets, and then you swap them and you're maintaining custody. If you're trading on a centralized exchange, you're essentially trading on a dashboard, and it's just a digital dashboard, and you don't really know what's behind that dashboard, right? Are these assets collateralized? The real money that you're putting in, is it backed up by something? And I think this is a hard lesson learned, because you don't know what they're doing with those assets that you put in, right? You have to trust in the centralized world that these assets are being used appropriately, whereas in the decentralized finance space, it's trustless. And I know trustless can be a confusing term for people that are not in the crypto space. So if anybody's new, I just want to reiterate that trustless means you don't have to trust the platform because it's a smart contract that's built to do a function, and that function is done without human interaction, right? It's an automated process. And so you don't have to trust a person to be the middleman of that. And oftentimes that middleman will not only take a piece of whatever transaction you're doing in form of a fee, but they'll also have the rights to move that asset around and borrow and lend against that asset. And so you're really just at the mercy of whatever they do. And so if that centralized exchange comes in, is insolvent and they don't have the funds, then it really puts you in a particular, you look at Mt. Gox, you look at the way FTX is running now. So there's a lot of risk involved in not maintaining possession of what is actually yours. And that's, for me, what I really love about decentralized finance is that it brings the power of your assets, in your digital assets, what belongs to you, and you get to choose how you want to use those assets, whether that be borrowing, lending, staking, etc. And that's just a really important thing for me. So I think not your keys, not your crypto. Preach it, live it, and stay safe, because it's a very volatile space out there. And never connect to websites that you don't know, that you're not familiar with. Always double check the URLs to make sure that you're connecting to the right site, so it's not a spoof site. Never share your seed phrases. Never click on links that are sent to you. Just always be cautious. There's always people trying to manipulate and to steal in the space, which is something that is difficult and with self-custody, and I think that part of the reason people tend to lean towards centralized exchanges rather than a DeFi space is that when you log into a centralized exchange, they have a really nice, pretty user interface. They make it easy. You have like one wallet there. You're able to use it back and forth. And when it comes to decentralized finance, you're having to understand how to send two wallet addresses and back and forth. There's more risk because in a centralized exchange, if you send it to, if I accidentally send a BEP20 to an instead of ERC20 to a centralized exchange, they may be able to fund that back to me. Whereas in decentralized finance, if you send something to somewhere, it's more than likely lost. So there are pros and cons to self-custody. You just need to really double check everything that you're doing and stay as safe as possible, because, it's not a regulated space yet, and the more that regulation comes in, the more I think it's important that you self-custody at this time.
Indeed. Yeah. So everyone listening, I know you've probably heard it a lot of times before, but having your crypto assets essentially stored by you, and you are the person that owns or knows the private keys or the seed phrase, is very important. Because if you don't, essentially it's the centralized exchange or another person that owns your crypto assets. Maybe not legally, but they're the person or the company that has control there. Ben, you unmuted yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'm just kind of thinking about the risks in DeFi, but then also the risks in CeFi, and not even just the crypto space, but just in terms of risks in corporate finance world. And obviously in that traditional world, you have regulators there to mitigate risk. And then on the DeFi world, you have smart contracts there to regulate and mitigate risk. And I don't know. This is kind of totally random. I started thinking about the evolution of money and how we went to you and I would have had to trade things. Like I was a blacksmith and you were a chicken farmer, and I traded my service for your chicken or vice, whatever. And then that became really inefficient. So we started to rely on banks because that became the new efficient way of trade. And now I think, I'll speak for myself and definitely like RTR and most people here, which is technology is unlocking this no longer need for that centralized mediator of exchange. But right now we just have to figure out how to do it safely. I do think the whole crypto wallet complexity part is a huge barrier to mainstream growth in that aspect. But, if we could somehow simplify that without needing to have it is simplified on an exchange, but if you could simplify it in a self-custody solution, then we really go, we've evolved past that need for the exchange mediator, which is what banks are, which is what exchanges are, everything. So it's interesting how technology is kind of bringing us back to how we used to do things, but it's still, keeping that efficiency standard that at this point we need in society.
Indeed. Yeah. There are not very few, but there aren't that many regulated exchanges in the UK, regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority, to hold and trade crypto assets, they call them. I think there's maybe sort of 15, 20, but then there's hundreds of sort of regular fiat centralized institutions. But to an extent, I think most people, this is just my personal belief, get into crypto through a centralized exchange, and also as their fiat off and on ramps. So exchanging fiat for crypto is often done via a centralized exchange as well. And this is, to RTR or Ben. Do you think that there'll always be a need for a more centralized crypto exchanges, or do you think in time we'll be able to work or deploy a sort of decentralized on and off ramp solution?
Well, I think that if you hit this mass adoption needed, then this on and off ramp concept kind of goes away. Like, the reason we need an on and off ramp is because I can't currently pay my electric bill in USDC. But if the electric company starts accepting USDC, then I don't need an off ramp. So I think if mass adoption in crypto payments can happen, then the need for an off ramp goes away, because at the moment there's nothing you could do but need a central, like, you have to get money to your bank somehow. If you get paid in crypto, then you need to pay your mortgage. I mean, there's really no way around it. But if your mortgage company accepted crypto, then you could actually live in this DeFi world full time. So I think that's what it'll eventually come down to. It could either happen or it doesn't, I guess.
Interesting. Go RTR.
I agree with Ben to an extent, and I think that centralized exchanges may be a necessary evil for the time being. It's going to be interesting to see how we move forward, and where we move forward in respect to onboarding and stuff. I know that we use, fiat on ramps, but at this time, I personally got into cryptocurrency through centralized exchange. I know that, and through Coinbase, and so it's an easy way to get in and then take those assets and move them into decentralized finance space. And I think that as we move forward, maybe peer-to-peer trading will have to get a little more built out. The structure of that can get built out more, and we can really emphasize, person-to-person trading, and not having to use the banks, for people who are trying to trade chickens, like Ben was mentioning earlier. So, it's definitely an interesting concept moving forward. And I think that the transparency that's coming for centralized exchanges will actually help what's going on. I know that we're in kind of a volatile time, and the markets have been experiencing a lot of turbulence because of recent events. But I think that with the transparency of, let's say, balance sheets and reserves that are coming forward, people are, making these centralized entities be a little more accountable for what they're doing. I'm not a huge fan of large regulatory bodies coming in, like the like the SEC, coming in and putting harsh regulations on cryptocurrency, because I think it'll try to undermine some of the growth that we've been really building out. And large events like this really do dampen cryptocurrency for traditional investors. And I think that there's a lot of things that can be set up, that are doing that, like people pushing out tweets and manipulating the market, for example. Things like that, where people come in, they jump in because they think something's going to go to $1, for example. I won't name drop to be petty, but something's going to run to $1 and it doesn't, and so experienced traders will dump it down, and small investors that are just trying to dip their feet into cryptocurrency get burnt. And so there's a lot of growth when it comes to getting into cryptocurrency, and sometimes that's trial by fire. I personally know that I've lost, more than I'd like to say in, honeypots and rug pulls as I've learned to trade in the decentralized finance space, but bringing about safety and security and making sure that what you're trading has utility, and you're not just degenning into, the thing that just launches so that you can hit the next moonshot is something that you need to be aware of. So there's a lot of risk right now in the space. Like with any investments, though, there's risk involved. But I think that at this time, utilizing centralized exchanges is important because, one, a lot of times what I've noticed is that it brings trust to certain parties. Some of the demographics in FEG token have expressed a desire for certain centralized exchanges because it brings, a sense of professionalism to the project, a sense of awareness, and people respect those platforms. So there's something to be said about utilizing them, with decentralized projects as well. But as we move forward, like I said, it will be interesting to see how onboarding and offboarding in cryptocurrency is done in a decentralized way. And if mainstream adoption is taken in that way, then maybe you just get into cryptocurrency and you don't have to come out. You can trade person to person. If person to person trading becomes large enough, then you're just trading assets that you hold, digital assets that you hold for goods and services, rather than having to come out into fiat. So, this is ultimately the goal, right? So it would be great to see.
Yeah, I kind of liked your point about right now exchanges are kind of like filling a gap, like an obviously needed gap, because if I think about how BSC News operates, and this is probably true for most seriously crypto focused companies, we get paid in crypto, we pay all of our writers, our staff, whoever in crypto. We have a bank account so that we can like pay the lawyers and the IRS, and maybe Google, but Google will probably start accepting crypto at some point. So we are almost, as a company, able to completely operate in a DeFi world other than like 3 bills. So, obviously to get to those bills, we rely on an exchange to get us there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And this won't happen, I don't think, anytime soon. Maybe in a decade, I'm able to, pay taxes. I'm able to, all the attorneys are taking crypto or something. I think maybe we eventually get there, and we definitely just need the centralized world to continue building trust after this, disaster of last week at this point.
Indeed, yeah, trust is certainly needed. But I think what's been happening, as a lot of other people have said on Twitter and social networks and the community and things, projects that are bad players will hopefully be weeded out. So in the future, when we go on the next bull run, things perhaps will be more positive. What you've been saying as well, Ben, about sort of crypto dollars, or stable coins like USDT, BUSD, Paxos USD. Obviously, they're backed by actual US dollars, and before crypto stable coins, the US dollar was backed by gold. So again, this is a bit of a deviation from the subject, but do you think it could get to the point where crypto dollars or just stable coins would not have to be backed by actual US dollars, and they would become the actual circulating supply of US dollars?
Well, I guess in theory, they could, if a central bank digital currency came out of the US Treasury, they could be backed at US CBDCs. And really what that just means is it's backed by faith in the US Treasury, right? That's what it's really backed in. But maybe in 20 years, Bitcoin is stable enough where you could have a stable coin backed by Bitcoin. Obviously, every attempt to really make a stable coin backed by crypto has, when it gets to a big enough size, it really doesn't work. So this is an area that needs to move slowly. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's, Bitcoin could become this backing asset at some point. Obviously, the volatility right now definitely won't allow for it, but maybe that's the future. Maybe it's a combination of US CBDCs and Bitcoin. Who knows? It'll be interesting to watch.
Indeed. Yeah. US CBDCs. Yeah. Yeah. Lots of acronyms. But yeah, I think central bank digital currencies are being talked about by different governments. A lot of people have varying views on them. I think there was something mentioned in the UK about central bank digital currencies being able to be programmable, which is a little bit worrying. But again, that was just something said in a document somewhere online. Might not even be true, but I think that was said. Yeah, sorry, Ben.
I'll just add to counter that and say, it's not like all of your money is currently programmable because it's like a spreadsheet in an institution. So I'm not afraid of this programmable money when we already use programmable money. I don't think anyone's using cash unless you're using cash in your daily life, then that's fine. But we're still swiping credit cards and storing our money in banks. So I don't see a difference personally. I think it's just.
I agree with that.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's all tracked anyway. Everything is electronic. The only difference is you're not swiping it with a card, or maybe you will be swiping it with a card for your cryptocurrency. But you could also send it through QR codes. But it's all the same. I personally don't use cash as much. I really don't like using cash, so I use my card for everything. Credit card to be specific, because I don't like to use debit cards because you have much more protection with a credit card. But I think that it definitely, that's the way it is. So everything's already tracked. Programmable if they want to they already freeze your assets. They'll take your house. They'll take your vehicles. They'll take, they'll lock up your bank account. So, if they want to come over and do it, they're going to do it either way. So I don't think it makes too big of a difference. That's like fearing buying a Tesla because they're going to shut down your car to drive. So it's, it is what it is.
Ooh, you just unlocked a new fear. This is why they want electronic cars, is so they can turn them off when the police are chasing you.
Indeed, and I think the whole sort of programmable thing, obviously quantitative easing as well, and this is a joke, by the way. Now, what I'm going to say, it sounded really funny in my head, but it's going to come out and it's probably not going to be very funny. But why do we have recessions if it's so programmable? They can just add a couple of extra zeros on here and there. Yeah. Sorry, everyone. That sounded a lot more funny in my head than it actually did.
Actually,
oh, yes,
no, I'm just kidding. No, they just have to cause a recession for a year, and then they can actually do exactly what you just said for the next 2 decades. So let's just do it.
Fantastic. Well, I look forward to some zeros. Just someone typing a couple. Yeah, someone could easily do that in a bank. Just add a couple of zeros here and there, and we'd be fine. Obviously, it wouldn't work, but
the only problem is then they add a couple of zeros to all the goods and services that you need. So it really just doesn't make a difference at the end of the day.
Well, I think he just wants it added to his account. If I'm understanding Tom correctly here?
Maybe, but it's programmable, so why not? Not your keys, not your crypto. That's what they say. Anyway, we are coming up to actually, no, sorry. I was going to say nearly an hour, but it's not nearly an hour. One question that I do have as well for Frankie or RTR. Obviously, there are services or functions within centralized exchanges that perhaps are better executed there than on DeFi. For example, limit orders. You can do them on DeFi, but perhaps they take a little bit longer, especially if you're using a hardware wallet. But also, you might have to pay a gas fee before the trade is actually executed. And then, once you put in that limit order, your tokens could be locked in a smart contract somewhere, which is, to an extent, a risk. And there are other, things as well within a centralized exchange that do have advantage. Obviously, cross-chain essentially is it's not actually technically cross-chain within a centralized exchange, but you can trade pairs on a centralized exchange, which doing in DeFi would be either quite long-winded or not possible. What are some key things from centralized exchanges that perhaps we can learn from them, but also that we could see in the years to come within the DeFi world?
Well, you could definitely take that limit order trading and improve it. Whereas you just mentioned the tokens being locked up for X amount of time, having to pay a gas fee up front, you're paying a trading fee. So for example, with our FTW, which is our from the wallet peer-to-peer limit order trading, you'll be able to trade from one person to another with no middleman no middleman in between. There's no contract that actually does the trading. It's peer-to-peer. So it makes it the most decentralized that it can be. And it's immediate, right? As soon as you agree and you approve that swap, you're buying that and it's immediate. So you can improve the process by increasing the time, the speed of it. We talked a little bit earlier about dashboard trading. So when you're trading on these platforms, obviously you're not trading cross-chain. They have the assets, probably a fraction of what their total assets are on their platform, and you're able to trade, cross-chain on there. And you can't do that in the decentralized finance space unless you utilize a bridge. And I think all of us through recent events have learned that bridges are not. It's not if, it's when they'll be exploited at this point in time. So there's just a lot of risk involved in doing that. So I think for the decentralized finance space, unless that can be, really done in a secure way, there's just so much risk involved in it. There are a lot of platforms that offer, cross-chain services that you can use. So I utilize those rather than try to bring that into like something like our platform. But making the limit orders platforms better for somebody who wants to self-custody and have those assets immediately. I mean, we can do that in the decentralized finance space on the singular chain at one time, and then you can always take those assets and trade them to another chain. That's not the difficult part. But then again, you also that's one of the gaps that Ben mentioned earlier. Filling the gap is that service of going cross-chain can be utilized on a centralized platform. So that's another gap that they fill. And so it's going to be, it sounds repetitive at this point, but it's going to be interesting to see how we can move forward in doing that, in a more decentralized way. And I think that now that there's a lot of, dark light, a lot of darkness has been shown on the centralized space, the emerging decentralized adoption that'll be coming now, that's already coming and that will be continuing to grow. Many of ideas will be coming into this decentralized space. And so, seeing who pushes them out first and how that's built out is going to be interesting.
Definitely. Thank you very much, RTR. I think, the future is bright for DeFi. Obviously, there's increasing demand for it, especially within the last week or so. That the technology's there. We just have to execute it, get mass adoption, get all these. Well, actually, no, I was going to go down that stablecoin route again. Ben and Frankie, you both have your mics unmuted. Go ahead if you have something to say.
Yeah, no, I was just going to touch on the kind of the adoption piece. Obviously, it's safe to say over the last week or so, adoption by default has increased because of what was going on. And I don't know why it stuck with me, but you said earlier people are starting to pull stuff off of CEXs and move into DeFi. Well, one of the things that we pay close attention to, which drives a lot of what we do, is DeFi adoption itself. You can look at one of the most recent reports, and I follow it closely, as you can probably imagine, which is the chain analysis geography of cryptocurrency reporting. When it goes into, in particular, the global DeFi adoption index, and we could see even prior to recent events, DeFi adoption was gaining traction anyway. So we certainly think we're at least going to be or are at the forefront of where things are ultimately going to be in the future to an extent, which is more decentralized. And it's interesting that P2P comes up because one of the biggest gainers in terms of traction are peer-to-peer transactions, especially in emerging markets like Vietnam, Kenya, all those kind of places. So it's interesting to watch. It's interesting to see. And I like to think we're in the right place and going in the right direction with it.
Most certainly. Yeah. Thank you, Frankie. Ben, you've got your microphone unmuted as well, but and your speech thing is going. Do you want to say something? Okay, I think. Oh, nope. Sorry, Ben.
So, well, it was muted on my side. Sorry if it wasn't muted. Was I making sound there? I shouldn't have
No,
been.
well, you weren't making sound, but your sound thing was going off, so I didn't know what was going on.
It was
But
muted for me. I could see it
oh,
muted when you were saying he wasn't, but maybe it was just
Okay.
a glitch. Twitter
It's just
Spaces.
Tom. Twitter Space.
okay, good. Well, thank you. I could talk to you all day about DeFi, and obviously at the moment as well, with everything that's going on. Yeah, it's incredibly fast paced. But what I think you're doing, FEG are doing sort of within the DeFi space, the sort of peer-to-peer swap as well, is needed and very, very beneficial. I think, yeah, that the past 2 weeks really, really have shown and really sort of chucked in people's faces that, decentralization is important. Get your coins off exchanges. Centralized exchanges do have their benefits. However, decentralization does certainly have its benefits as well. That's all sort of we've got time for. Well, at the moment, there is 8 minutes or so left that we could fill time. But thank you very much, listeners, for coming as well. I hope you've learned something. I certainly have. Before we start to wrap things up, is there anything that you'd like to add to the conversation at all regarding DeFi, FEG at all? And that's just open to Ben, Frankie, or RTR.
I think I'll just ask FEG while we have him here to give us a rundown of what to expect from them over, let's say, the next 4 to 6 weeks, something like that. Just finishing out Q4.
Absolutely. So we have already had some NDAs signed and sent off to auditing companies, and we'll be sending out our SmartDeFi launchpad contract to an auditor by the end of this week. And so we expect that when that's done, we'll be able to, begin the first steps of our migration from the current version of the token to our SmartDeFi technology, which we talked about having had asset backing and smart lending and a number of different features, staking. So we have that's going, our staking contract and pre-sale contract that'll be used for internal pre-sale events and for staking for all SmartDeFi tokens, including FEG, that launch off of this platform. We'll go to audit as well. So we're pushing those out. We also have our From the Wallet platform coming, which is the peer-to-peer limit order trading platform that we discussed, as well as our aggregator that is going to allow you to buy at market price alongside the limit order platform so that you can utilize those both to their strengths at the best capacity. So we have a lot that's rolling out. We've continued to roll out the rebrand on multiple platforms. I know that there are some wallets that still have the old logo. We're looking into getting all of these things adjusted. There's some new graphics and things that'll be coming out this coming week for the community. So, stay tuned in the Telegram channel, the main verified Telegram channel, I should mention, because there's a number of copycat channels that are attempting to mimic FEG token so that they can try to push a false migration. So definitely be cautious about that. Only take note from FEGtoken.com and the @FEGchat verified channel on Telegram so that you're not getting misled in the migration. But that migration will be coming soon. We're looking at by the end of Q4 to migrating the token over to the SmartDeFi technology. And really excited to see what this brings to the space. So, I mentioned the pre-sale contract. Our pre-sale has a number of functions in it that are fantastic, and it's internal pre-sale, so you're not having to go to a third-party site. There's a lot of protective functions on there for users, and so take a look at our Gitbook online with all of our information at docs.fegtoken.com. That's docs.fegtoken, FEGTOKEN.com. So take a look at our Gitbook. We're actually updating all the information right now with some of what has come to light from the developers that they've just finalized. So there's a lot of information there. And if you have any questions, we have our main chat in Telegram that's @FEGchat, FEGCHAT. And we also have a 24-hour voice chat that you can come into and ask any of your questions, where you'll find a moderator 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. So definitely we pride ourselves on providing the best customer support that we can with all of the investors in here. As a community-driven project, we're all volunteers here that want to look out for one another. So you can also, if you have any more technical questions, we have a group of our technical team members in @FEG support. That's FEG support, SUPPORT. So that's definitely a channel that you can go to if you're having any technical issues or have any blockchain questions. They're really well versed on chain, so definitely go there if you need any support, advanced support. And before we go, Dan and Ben, really want to say thank you for having us. Thank you for Frankie for arranging this for us and for jumping on and joining. Really appreciate everybody that's coming to listen. We're really excited about what's about to roll out, and I think that it's going to be definitely interesting to see where this space is moving again in the next few months. Just to reiterate that, and I'd love to jump on again with you guys and have a discussion to see where we're at in a couple months from now.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much, RTR. Obviously, thank you very much, Frankie, as well. And as always, yeah, thank you, Ben, as well. One thing, though, you obviously mentioned the live voice chat that's online all the time. Can you just tell me again what platform that was on? Was that Telegram?
Yeah, our Telegram chat, which is at FEGChat, FEGCHAT. It's a verified channel. We have a 24-hour voice chat on there, so you can jump on there. There's a moderator that's in there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And we offer, any questions that you may have about the project. Oftentimes, they're just chopping it up, talking about the cryptocurrency space, recent events. So if you're looking for a place to hang out, talk cryptocurrency, see what's going on with FEG Token project, and really want to dive into, what DeFi is and how we're progressing forward and what changes we're making to the space to impact it with our utility, definitely jump on there. Again, that's at FEGChat, FEGCHAT, verified Telegram channel, and jump on the voice chat and have a discussion with some of the moderators in there. I think you'll learn something, you maybe teach people something, and it's definitely an engaging group, and it's definitely a fun time.
Amazing. No, I never knew that. I might, hang out there this evening after I've done a bit of work. So thank you very, very much. And thank you, obviously, as RTR said, to all of our listeners for tuning in. I do hope you've learned something today. And I think, the take-home message for this whole week is just trade safe. If you can, get your coins off exchanges onto an external self-custody wallet, preferably cold storage like SafePal, Ledger, Trezor, that sort of thing. But thank you very, very much for your time. And I do hope, to speak maybe, I don't know, in a month or so, couple of months. And hopefully, we'll be on a little bit of an uptrend by then. But before we go and say goodbye, is there any last words anyone would like to mention?
No, just thanks for having us. RTR said pretty much everything I think that needs to be said, but definitely get involved in our community if you have questions. And we have 70 plus mods RTR who are dedicating their time to help people, and we have the community who are more than willing to help people with questions as well. So thanks for this. Great spaces as per usual, and we'll catch you soon.
Amazing. Thank you very, very much to FEG. Speak soon, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Do trade safe and just generally be safe in crypto, and obviously just in life as well. Speak soon, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a good rest of your day. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.